Welcome back to another episode of Content is Profit. Today we have a special one. We actually have a communication student and a video production student.
That's right.
Same person though. And we're going to be discussing some of the challenges they've been having with a project from one of their new clients that is seeking to create somewhat of a mini documentary. Yeah. So he actually came on the studio with some questions and looking for some guidance. And at the end of the day,
the initial pitch was to shadow the show, and then the conversation was so good. We're like, we need to record about this because a lot of people are probably experiencing the same friction because we did. Yep. That was one of the things that we did, and we go through a bunch of examples. We go through how to apply it actually in your business, how to apply it you as a creator, or even if you are a business, how to talk to your team about it.
That is right.
I think it's super exciting. Now, enjoy.
Well, I was going to add some of the things you could learn. Some of the things you're going to learn on this episode are managing expectations, right, with the client when they bring a project to you, especially if you cannot have your hands on every stage of the project. So mostly on the post-production side of things. Another thing that we talk about is processes on the creative aspect, right? How do you structure maybe certain pieces of content? And at the end of the day, we also talk about our famous publishing pyramid and quality of the message over quality of the production.
Yeah, Fonzie's also thrown under the bus a couple of times, and then I've also thrown under the bus for a couple of times. So
enjoy.
We've got some
hey,
fresh new
I'm
young
Luis.
talent
And
doing some
I'm
things
Luis.
that I know you haven't
And you're
heard
listening to the
before.
Content is Profit podcast. So welcome, Colin. Let's go.
Let's go.
Hello.
Yeah, you got an audience. Colin, remember, talk close to the mic. Feel free. Feel free to handle the mic whichever way you want. It's totally okay.
And here's a little bit more context, right? Like Colin's working with this amazing company, which remains to be not named, but a very fun and amazing, project that's gonna be very, very big. That's all we can say. It involves racing cars, and we're just talking about back-end processes, how to make like video editing a little bit easier, types of video editing, types of podcasts.
Pre-production,
post-production, how to make a win for a client, like explaining expectations, right? Like all these amazing things, and we're like, wow, this is so cool because that's kind of like the world that we started in, and now we just really focus on podcasts and the micro assets, right?
Yeah.
The
so,
clips.
Colin, we're gonna put you under the mic here. I know my brother butcher a little bit. What you do, what you go for school. He goes to school for content, but I know personally from talking to you that you had an interest in cinematography, all that.
Yeah,
and we always said also that you had a radio voice. So finally you're on a podcast. So why don't you share with us a little bit what are those interests and what you're actually going to school for?
Yeah. So ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to go into like film.
Yeah.
Because I always like the creative process of making film and like being able to just to do that just always was really cool to me, and like that art form and stuff. But for me, I was going to go for film, but I didn't go for film because I don't think you can be taught like how to make specifically a film. So I wanted to go and look at more of the process specifically. So like video production.
Yeah.
So I'm going for like a communications major with the digital video production track. So I get those technical aspects that allow me, so that way my voice can do the talking, but I actually know how to talk, I guess.
Yeah.
In
cool.
that way.
I like it. We actually might have you a teacher later on here in like 2 hours. Now that you said that you're
she rescheduled.
She rescheduled? Yeah. Oh, okay. Because you're like, I'm in communication. I'm like...
That's way better that you go to school for content. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, 100%.
But anyways, Fonzie, you were in the middle of an idea when we said like, stop saying that.
Yes.
And continue on the show. Colin, do you remember what he was saying?
No.
My goodness.
All right, cool. But let's give some context on this conversation, right? Besides, because I think that is like out there in the ether. We're gonna talk a lot about a lot of things.
How is this a win for you, the listener, or you watching the video, right? Like, obviously, we have a production business on the back end, and some of the things that I was showing Colin earlier was like our own process, and we developed something where it's like we like to remove the friction, identifying these places where production might be held up, right? And that goes all the way from like scripting to like post-production, right? There's these elements. And then you come up with your own process. And every single, I guess, editor or content, producer will have their own process. And we encourage you to start exploring that, right?
Yeah.
So
I think they're gonna have overlaps at the end of the day. A lot
Yeah.
of it is gonna overlap.
and as a marketer or as a content producer, you're chasing a result, right? What is that result? Is that more sales? Is that more better message, better storytelling, like all these things, right? And then that process is gonna shape that result.
Yeah. So let's talk about, without mentioning brands, names, whatever. Kind of like, let's use your project that you came with here. Asking questions about
Yeah.
as the context for what we're gonna talk about, right? So. Mention a little bit about what is the challenge that you're having or that you were having at the beginning of this project.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the challenge that kind of comes in is like, what does the client want versus how I guess vision it in my head. And so there has to be that happy medium, right? Because I'm the one that's painting the picture, but
Yeah.
he's asking me to make said picture. So if I don't know what to paint, then how am I supposed to do it? So it's definitely a learning process, and obviously, I'm still learning, and
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like 22 years old. I'm still getting that like whole like thing going. But yeah, I mean, and that's why I wanted to come to you guys, because I mean, you guys understand. I mean, you guys have the experience. So having that, knowing where it's like, I guess you have to make your own process of how it needs to work for you, at least helps me understand, especially for this video.
So let's see if we can paint the picture without naming anything, right? Like, it's like almost you came into a project and you received this box of puzzle pieces, right?
Yes.
And they threw them on the table,
AKA media files.
aka media files, and then they threw them on the table and then they spread them out. And the client wants a result based on that footage that you, as a producer and an editor, you didn't have control over, like the storyline or what happened. So there's a multi-day event, and there's like these things that happened, but then you as an editor, there's a lot of resources that are invested in actually rewatching this type of content and trying to make sense of like maybe what the client wants, right?
Right.
And sometimes this is our point, right? Sometimes a client might not know really what they want, right? They might have a reference.
Exactly.
They might tell you, hey, I want X, but X means something different to you, right? And then, so that's the challenge, right? It's like, how do we make this a win for the organization, for the client, based on the resources that we have today?
I mean, I think another challenge too is the fact that they might know what they want, but they might not be as educated on the process on how to achieve that. So they went into this project with, okay, let's say example, we want to shoot a mini documentary, but they didn't know they had to plan it. They need some sort of storyboard. They needed B-roll. They don't understand the difference between A-roll, B-roll, right? All these different puzzle pieces, right, that you can add to create a final product. So they went on and they said, okay, we're just going to shoot a lot of content because that's what we need. We just need a lot of content.
Right.
And then we're just going to give it to the editor because the editors, their job is to put things together. And that's it, right? So they have this goal, but they have some sort of lack of understanding, which is going to make the project a little bit more challenging. Yeah. So how do we tackle that in your eyes? First of all, I would love to hear from you. How do you think you should tackle, this sort of expectations with the client, right? That they have. It's like, all right, we want to build this. And then you see what they got, right? The tools that they're offering you. What would you tell them?
Oh, geez. I mean, I got to be able to work with what I've got. So there does need to be a little bit of give and take, I think, when it comes to that process, because I can't materialize stuff out of thin air. So if you don't know that we don't have this shot, or this shot might not be like shot well, or we just didn't get it done the right way, there might need to be a little bit of a pivot, or we need to kind of look at something else to be that main focus. And it's that give and take.
Yeah. So for example, like one of the things that we're talking about is like, let's say they want an interview shot in a mini documentary, right? And then the reference that we get, and on our process, we always ask for a reference at the beginning. We're like, what are some examples of content that you like, that you consume, like what, so we can see like what they're actually thinking about, right? In a sense. And then they want an interview shot, and they show us, let's say, a press conference, right? That is shot with like a TV camera. There's microphones. You can actually listen to it. But then the shot that we get is shot from an iPhone, moving from one side to the other one. The audio is maybe there's not microphone, right? It's maybe the iPhone, you know. So there's a limitation to that type of content versus the expectation that the client might have. And I think in general, like in our world, that happens every single day, right? Like in our specific case with podcast editing, this is why I'm so excited on the studio, because we can control that environment, right? So if somebody comes in here, we're like, you know what, you guys don't have to think about anything, because you sit here, we have a 4K camera, we have the Rodecaster, which will record the best audio possible, right? And then there's a clear expectation of what the end result is. Versus, let's say we also work with a lot of remote people, right? And it's like, well, they send us a Zoom interview file, right? And it's like, it's not the main camera, you know, interview file, but it's like the pixelated, like all the little squares in there where you have to actually digitally zoom in, and everything's pixelated. So if we want to create micro content out of that, it might not be the best looking micro content out there, right? And the reference that they have is maybe a 4K shot in a studio in an amazing couch, right? So you're like, okay, where is the gap, and how can I educate the client or the person that I'm helping into bridging that gap and understanding like, hey, this thing that you sent me, or that example, and that goes with like social content, design work, like brand work, all of this, right? It takes this type of equipment, this type of time to edit, this type of time to like script, these many resources, and it's triple X money, right? And this thing that you sent me, right, and then the result, we're so far away from that, right? So how can we help you get there? And I think that's a very exciting opportunity and maybe conversation that a lot of people can have with their potential coworkers.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like knowing the limitations that you have, and then having it on what puzzle pieces we got helps with that process.
I think constant communication is key. Right, again, they're going to have some sort of expectations. The example, asking for an example, it's a great idea, because it's going to let you understand the gap, right? Because if they say they want something cinematographic, but then you look at the footage and there's nothing cinematographic in there, you're like, all right, let's set this clear, right? The most cinematographic this is going to look like is probably the sound design and maybe some color grading in here, right? But like, you know, not to get too technical, your whole idea is to close that gap from their expectations and what they want to what you can actually produce. And by saying this, I don't mean lower their expectations so much that you can produce something that is not quality. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is just help them understand what is the best that you can create with the footage, the tools that you have, right? And then let them, you know, kind of like reorganize that expectation that they have. So an idea that just popped into my head would be, okay, they send all this footage and they tell you, we want to build this mini documentary. So you're like, okay, well, first of all, let me go through the footage, right? So I can give you a clear answer, because I'm not going to say we can actually build this without seeing, because I cannot control the pre-production process, right? I wasn't part of, you know, the shot list that we had to create. I wasn't part of, you know, any of the shooting. So I need to see what you have to see if it actually makes sense to create what you're looking for. So I was like, all right, I'm going to get back to you in 24 hours. So you go, you look at the footage, and maybe looking at the footage, you realize, okay, I cannot create the mini documentary because there's not enough storytelling in here. There's not enough interviews, A-roll. Maybe there's some good B-roll that I can use. So then you decide, what are some options that I can offer them? All right, option A, create the documentary. Hey, look, based on the footage that you gave me, we can put this together only if we manage to do an interview with all the participants, right? We need to talk to these people and ask them some questions so we can get some story that we can thread throughout this B-roll. Option B is, with the footage that we have, we can make a pretty cool like hype video with maybe some, you know, samples of some of the interviews that you get here and there. And that is total possibility. We wouldn't have to invest more resources into doing interviews, etc. But this is what we can actually do with the footage that you provided to us at that moment.
Right.
And now you have something, you know, concrete that you can show them, and then they can decide, all right, we want, let's say we don't have more resources to invest into the interviews. Let's go with the high video with some samples of the interviews that you put in there that they shooted, and we can create something in there. All right, perfect. So this is what we're gonna do now. Their expectations, are taken care of. They know exactly what they're getting. They know exactly what you can produce. You know that you can produce certain type of project because you already know what you're working with.
Yeah.
And then, their expectations are level with your commitment. And just like, boom, let's go.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean that completely makes sense, and that is one thing, because I took the project on without looking at the footage first, so I probably should have done that. But there's footage there to make a product, 100%. So
yeah, I think we went through like also a couple of examples too, like where I think being a consumer of content, like if you are in this world, helps a ton, and not like content of your market. Like I love, we all love anime here, right? Did I say right in English? Anime.
Do you really love it?
I said it in Spanish. Did I say it right? Anime, right? Yeah. I like movies a ton, like every kind of movies, right? Lately I've been into F1 documentaries, right? I just saw one, and that was like one of the examples. Is like, okay, instead of like those references really good, because then you can apply lessons from those things that you watch and look like through not only the commercial side, like, but it's like in this documentary, what's happening? Like, are they talking? What's the shot? Do they have like, if they're having an interview, they have like 3 shots. Wow, that's like interesting, right? Because it keeps like the camera shifting, like from this camera to this camera to that camera, right?
Yeah.
Mava is gonna have a good time editing this, but and then you can take those elements and be like, okay, based on these puzzle pieces that I have, or if I'm planning ahead of time, like that storyboard or that shot list, then like, what are the resources that we have, right? Well, we have X camera, we have an iPhone, and which, by the way, an iPhone will be incredible, right? Like I think the latest Apple commercial was actually shot on an iPhone, which is crazy.
I think there's some movies out there right now getting shot on iPhone. It's insane.
Yeah.
The tech that's going into it.
Exactly. So like, but just do an inventory, right? In our case, we have Sony CV-A10s, right? Everybody asks us like, what camera are you guys using? We have iPhones, we have a GoPro that we never use, right? Like those things, and then from there, be like, okay, perfect. How do I actually place them to get based on your ability as an editor, right? We talked about this too, so it can be the best, right? So I'm probably the less technical here, like between you two, right? So my shot is gonna be like very organic, very like jump cut, zoom in, zoom out, because that's the extent of my personal ability to do that, right? You guys can probably do a little bit more fancy stuff.
Yeah, I mean we've always led with quality of the message over quality of the production. Right, and I think to an extent that is true. You can see maybe a movie that doesn't have the biggest budget or the best type of shots, but their storytelling is absolutely amazing, right? And it takes you for a ride, and you're like an emotional ride, and you're crying and laughing. Like, you're probably gonna go through the full movie, and then you're gonna be like, dang, the production wasn't the best, but the movie was super good.
Well, yeah, because that can be entertaining at least.
Exactly,
and there could be an awful story, but yet if it looks good,
exactly. Yeah. And there's movies like that they have the best cameras, the best looks, everything, and you're like, no, this movie sucked.
Well, I mean, that's why what like the Fast and Furious movies are still being made, because everybody loves them. Everybody loves them because it's just like family. Exactly.
Yeah. At the end of the day, they do. Maybe they make you cry a little bit.
Yeah, I know that you like movies, right? We're talking about superhero movies, right? An example of like one of these negative ones, it would be like maybe the Marvels, right? Like the superhero.
Can I put a pause there real quick?
No.
I just want to finish the point that I was making real quick with the quality of the message over quality of the production, right? My whole thing is, not everybody that's listening to this podcast is going to be very technical. Yeah, not everybody's going to have an inclination to wanting to learn about cameras or audio or even the different type of cables, which I recently learned about when we acquired the studio. Yes. I was like, wow, that's very interesting. But a lot of people don't want to learn about that. They just want to pop a phone open and they want to shoot something, right? They want to lean on their message. So my recommendation would be,
if you pop a phone open right now, you will break the phone.
Yeah, if you pop a phone open, you're probably
got the flip one.
Yeah, there we go. It can be that Samsung that flips. So, my thing is, focus on the story, right? Focus on what is it, on the quality of the message. And there's some basic things that could help the production, aka something very, very simple is when you're going to shoot with your phone, maybe you want to, lean on closer to a source of light. Maybe you want to lean on to a window when it's a cloudy day, so you get that little bit of soft light,
Cheek
etc.
against the window.
Right?
Make
So-
sure your cheek is touching the window.
So you don't need a huge technical knowledge to do this type of things,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, you do need some level of expertise when it comes to refining your message. At least, and it doesn't have to be perfect to get started. We've talked about that before, but you need to get it done. You need to put the reps in so it can get better and better every single time. And at the end of the
Yeah,
day,
because tech's
focus on
getting
that.
easier to be made, or sorry, tech's getting easier to be used
Yep.
by just everyday people.
Absolutely.
So I mean, like I said with the iPhones,
Yeah.
it's insane.
Yep.
So I have a question for you, because obviously we're like street educated, right? Like we didn't go to school for this thing, right? And we probably can learn a lot from you. But I remember like one example is like, technically, let's say we're educating, right? And next year is going to be a huge year for us. We're going to lean a lot into more of that side of things in our business. But, we love to do a lot of presentations, and we used, we did a couple of workshops where we're like, technology was like you share a screen and then we connected the iPad so we can write like, type of whiteboard type of deal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the other day I was like, man, like, what if you don't have that capacity to do that, right? It's like, okay, well, you actually, buy a freaking whiteboard or like a stand with like paper, and then your camera shoots that, and then you explain the thing, quality of the message over quality of the production, right? So with your current resources, what you have, don't let that not allow you to create, right? You have the stuff to create, right? And if your thing is valuable and you're providing value, helping and serving people and solving their problems, right, it's gonna happen. So curious, on like you obviously you're a professional. you're going to school to be a professional, right?
Yes.
What are some cool things like that you've learned so far on the video production aspects, right?
Yeah.
Like we're very street educated in the sense of like we probably made and continue to make every single mistake on the book when it comes to stuff like this, right? I remember when we first sold, we were doing like hype videos for fraternities and sororities, right?
Okay.
And Fonzie brought a piece of equipment today which we used at that point, and he's like, here's how you use it. And then I tried to handle it, and my arm wasn't strong enough, and like after 5 minutes the camera started like leaning over. So he goes like, here, you just use your iPhone with like a electronic stabilizer, right?
Yeah.
And we were just like running around back and forth, and at the end of the day,
That's where I learned that you need a shot list in those type of events.
Right.
Exactly. So, obviously we made our fair share of mistakes, but what are some cool things that or maybe that you think is cool?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Putting in those reps is really good, but learning, I guess, the like intricate technical stuff, because I'm taking like, I've played with a camera for like years, but I didn't know what ISO f-stops shutter speed was until I was like getting into classes in college this year with that.
Yeah.
And knowing that now allows me to make the shots look better and more professional. So, I mean, you've gone as far as you have with the materials you have.
Yeah.
So use those to get there, but don't be afraid to add, I guess, more materials on top of it.
Yeah.
Because then it's just going to keep on going.
Yeah,
going.
that's a great point. There's some base knowledge that you maybe do need to seek, right? So you can do something better. For example, and I'm going to go on the podcasting world, something that I would recommend for people to learn, first of all, is lighting, right? If you're going to shoot something, like how does lighting works at least to an extent, so you can control the look of your environment, right? So maybe it doesn't look like you're just calling from a Zoom call. The other thing that I would, that is very simple to learn would be framing, right? Maybe I learned a rule of thirds, and now I know exactly where to put people on the, on the frame when I'm shooting with multiple guests.
Yeah,
or if it's just you by yourself, you know exactly where to position yourself and how to shoot yourself.
By the way, if you know the rule of thirds and this video is not the rule of thirds, it was not Fonzie setting it up. It was me, and I don't know the rule of thirds.
That is
not
correct.
rule of thirds.
I tried to explain it to my brother, but yeah, we're working on that.
I don't think it is. I guess technically I didn't see what went on behind the camera.
Yeah,
I guess we'll see it in post.
We'll see it in
You'll
post.
tell me.
Then I'll
We'll
tell
see
you
it in
after.
post. Yeah, so there's certain, I would say, basic knowledge that just by putting a little bit more intention into those, first, it doesn't take that long to learn. Like the rule of thirds is very, very simple. right?
Oh,
I'm not
yeah.
gonna go ahead and explain it right here, but
quick.
really, yeah, you can literally learn that in like 5 minutes, and it will make a noticeable difference in your footage.
Agreed.
So this base level knowledge can literally help you look already better than, I would argue, majority of people that shoot that don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not a very hard investment that you got to put in. Now, learning how the ISO, f-stop, all these things work, it might take a little bit longer. You can know, the basics of it. It might take a little bit longer to learn, but again, that's going to add another layer of production value to it.
But
So, yeah.
for me, I would say the hardest part about putting those reps in is if it's something you don't care about.
Mm-hmm.
So make what you want to make. So come up with an idea that you think would be fun, and then you practice those reps
Yep.
on that. Because you're not going to have an interest in it if you're just like, I'm going to do like homework. Like that's why nobody likes doing math from school. But if you're doing it for fun, then it's actually like fun. So like,
if you're doing math for learning how to play poker, let me tell you,
right.
then you'll be hooked.
Yeah, so
For those that are not aware, Fonzie has been obsessed with poker the last month. He keeps losing, but
But I'm learning all the math.
but making what you want to make motivates you to learn, so that way you might do it the first time and it's like, okay, cool. I didn't get it the exact way I want to make it, but I at least practiced, so now I need to do it again after learning that knowledge. And then YouTube, because there's 1,000,001 people that have already done the research, so you don't even need to do as much of the research as you can monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah. I remember seeing this streamer from Spain, Ibai, right? Like probably the biggest streamer that there is, and he does like this 3-4 hour
In Spain.
In Spain, exactly. He's not sponsored by Prime too, by the way. Like he's one of their influencers, which is crazy.
It's pretty big.
He owns the Kings League, is like this, undercover soccer league that they created. With
Not very
some player.
undercover.
Not very undercover, but it's like
You know
it's-
about it, so
it's highly popular, but it's like anyways, it's like a fun take on soccer. And then we started watching his content. We had no idea who he was, and I was like, we got hooked by these videos that were like, what is it? If you laugh, you lose, right? So like he has a community on Discord, and they send them these clips, and on his live stream, he goes through these clips and he just comments it with like his audience, and they laugh together and whatever, and then he gives away money, right? Like $500 to the one that made it the laugh the most, right? At first was don't laugh, and then it evolved into we're laughing, but this was the funniest one, right?
Right.
And we're like, wow, this is great, right? And then we like our production minds were like, how does he doing this? So he actually does like a 3-4 hour live stream, and he has like 5 different sections, and each section then becomes its own YouTube video. So let's say that section is about 30 minutes. His editor grabs the live stream footage. It's not like an individual camera, and this like the actual live stream footage, and then they cut it to like a 10 or 12 minute video, kind of like a little bit faster pace with jump cuts. But it's like literally, what are the scenes? The scenes is like the full screen with him in the corner, the zoom in to him, like literally like in the stream, and the zoom in to the video, right? And you're like, wow, it's like one feed. You're not dealing with like a bunch of cameras, and they're based on the message. Like, is this actually funny? And like engaging moments like for their social. And we're like, that's so awesome,
Yeah,
right?
and I mean, it's pretty easy to do because you're just watching the video and going, this one was good, this one was good, this one was good.
Yeah, you see like where
Stringing
is
it
everybody
together.
laughing? Where are the comments coming in like crazy, right? Like those are your indicators. We call those, by the way, value index indicators. Like on our podcast, those are moments that we're looking for. And so we go back to like modeling. Like what is the type of content that you enjoy watching, that you like, and then like you said, put in the reps, creating that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, we covered plenty. I don't know if how long you guys want to keep going with the conversation.
Forever.
But just to recap here a little bit, right? We talked about kind of like managing some sort of expectations, right? And commitments with clients, right? And projects, and educating them, right? We also talk about, quality of the story over quality of the message over quality of the production, but at the same time, having some sort of base knowledge that also you seek to learn more of as time goes. It's not like, all right, I'm going to learn this and I'm just going to leave it like this for the rest of my life. Like, be a learner, be curious, like keep learning consistently and improving your craft, whether that is on the storytelling side of things, on the message side of things, or on the production side of things, right? And we talked about this. publishing pyramid, right? The higher you go on the publishing pyramid, right, you get your quality of the message, consistency, and at the end, you start getting more resources. Then you can reinvest that into potentially, hiring Colin here, and he can help you with the production side of things, and then you don't gotta learn as much of the production, but more focus on the quality of the message, right? And also, what was the last topic you talked about? I forgot.
Modeling, like I think
Processes. That's what you were talking about. Processes, right?
Sure.
Yes,
Modeling.
Okay.
Modeling, no, processes, right? It's kind of like
That
having.
was the first topic we talked about.
Yeah, but you're like
Yeah.
your values, your value index indicators,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
Having your live stream, you have a process when you're creating some sort of stuff that is going to facilitate the output at the end of the day when you're going to create.
Yeah.
Awesome. Colin, dude, first appearance on a podcast.
Yes.
We're gonna save this, when you're like editing for F1 or big events or whatever, you tell us.
I'm gonna add.
Embarrassment.
I'm gonna add. When we met Colin at the coffee shop, one of the first things I told him was like, "Dude, you have a radio voice.
Yeah.
You should be."
Yeah, that is exactly what you said.
Yeah, I was like, you should be on a podcast or on the radio. So
Comes full circle. Comes full circle.
full circle. Hopefully, you're motivated or inspired to start your own podcast, your own show. Who
I
knows?
need to figure out what to talk about.
Hey, you know a lot about anime and you know a lot about
do.
production. So I'm sure you got plenty of passion projects or you're
Absolutely.
passionate about a lot of things that you can talk about. But if you like Colin here and you want him back, let us know. If you think he's definitely a radio future star, let him know as well. Motivate him. Maybe he'll come here and record some podcasts one day.
Oh, dude, I'll totally do this again. This was fun.
Let's go.
Yeah, not expected at all. And any last thoughts that you want to share with people out there, creating content in general?
Just keep doing it.
Keep
keep
doing
doing
it.
it.
Keep doing it. Smart.
Yeah, I
Keep it
like
simple.
I like how you changed the first words so Nike wouldn't sue us. I appreciate that.
I didn't even think about that.
Just keep
So-
doing it.